It sounds absurd at first. A man who controls rocket satellites and artificial intelligence. A man whose company builds some of the most advanced electric vehicles on Earth. A man whose name is synonymous with the future of transportation. And yet Elon Musk gives advice that shocks almost everyone who hears it. Don't buy a car. Not because cars are bad, not because technology doesn't matter, but because buying the wrong car at the wrong time for the wrong reason quietly destroys more personal wealth than almost any other decision people make. This isn't theory. This isn't minimalism. And it certainly isn't hypocrisy. Elon Musk understands cars better than almost anyone alive. He knows how they're engineered, how they're marketed, and most importantly, how they're paid for. And that's exactly why his warning carries weight. To him, a car is not a symbol of success. It's not a milestone. It's not a reward. It's a tool. And like any tool, if you overpay for it, it works against you. What most people don't realize is that the damage doesn't happen the day you buy the car. It doesn't even happen in the first year. The damage compounds silently month after month, payment after payment, opportunity after opportunity lost. People think they're choosing a vehicle. What they're really choosing is a financial trajectory. And once that trajectory is set, it's painfully hard to change. That's why even as the man behind Tesla, Elon Musk, tells people something that feels completely backwards in a consumer-driven world, if you're still building your future, the fastest way to sabotage it might be sitting in your driveway. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never want to hear. A car is not an asset. It does not make you richer. It does not work for you while you sleep. From the perspective of Elon Musk, a car is a liability with an excellent marketing department. The moment you drive it off the lot, it starts losing value. Not slowly, aggressively. Depreciation is not an accident. It is engineered into the system. New car smell fades in weeks, but the financial damage compounds for years. People talk about cars as if they're investments. They say things like, "I need something reliable," or "I worked hard, I deserve it." None of that changes the math. Reliability doesn't create value. Desire doesn't reverse depreciation. What makes this especially dangerous is that cars don't feel like financial mistakes. They feel practical, necessary, normal. And that's why they quietly drain wealth while people remain convinced they're making responsible choices. To Elon Musk, this confusion is fundamental. Assets produce cash flow or appreciation. Liabilities consume cash and decay over time. A car does the second consistently, predictably, and without mercy. And when people stretch their income to own something that is guaranteed to go down in value, they aren't just buying transportation. They are locking themselves into a system where money flows out faster than it can ever come back. That's why this decision matters so much. Because unlike a bad trade or a failed investment, a car never recovers. It doesn't rebound. It doesn't surprise you on the upside. It only does exactly what it was designed to do. Take your money and turn it into less money. Most people think they understand what a car costs. They look at the sticker price and stop there. 30,000, 40,000, maybe more. From the perspective of Elon Musk, that number is almost meaningless. It's not the cost, it's just the entry fee. The real cost starts after you sign the papers. Monthly payments, insurance, maintenance, fuel, registration, repairs, taxes. And if the car is financed, interest quietly stacking on top of everything else. Each piece feels manageable on its own. Together they form a machine that drains cash every single month. This is where people get fooled. They budget for the payment, not the system. They plan for today, not for the next 5, 10, or 20 years. A car doesn't ask for money once, it asks repeatedly. And it does so while becoming less valuable with time. That's the part almost no one calculates. You're paying continuously for something that is continuously worth less. To Elon Musk, this is bad engineering. In any system, if inputs are high and outputs are declining, the design is flawed. Yet people willingly lock themselves into this structure because it feels normal, because everyone else is doing it, because the damage is delayed. And delayed consequences are the most dangerous kind. You don't feel the weight of the car decision this year. You feel it years later when flexibility is gone, when savings are thin, when opportunities pass, because cash is already spoken for. By then, the car is just an old object in the driveway. But the cost, that's still with you. The real damage isn't what you spend, it's what you never get the chance to earn. This is the part almost everyone misses, and it's the part Elon Musk cares about most: opportunity cost. Money is not static. Every dollar has a potential future. When you spend it on something that depreciates, you don't just lose that dollar, you erase everything it could have become. A car payment feels harmless. A few $100 a month, something you fit into the budget. But that same money invested consistently compounds, quietly, relentlessly. Over decades, it turns into freedom. This is why the mistake is so brutal. Cars don't bankrupt you immediately. They don't create a crisis you can point to. Instead, they steal from your future in small, polite amounts. Month after month, they siphon off capital that could have been building leverage elsewhere. People say it's just a car, but it's never just a car. It's the investment you didn't make, the risk you couldn't take, the year you had to keep working instead of choosing something better. Elon Musk understands this at a systems level. When capital is tied up in low-return, high-depreciation objects, the entire system slows down. Optionality disappears. Decisions become constrained. You start optimizing your life around payments instead of possibilities. The tragedy is that by the time this becomes obvious, it's usually too late to reverse easily. The car is already older, the money is already gone, and the compounding that never happened never will. That's why this decision matters far more than people think. Not because of the car itself, but because of the future it quietly takes away. To understand how destructive this really is, you have to compare two paths side by side. This is how Elon Musk would frame. Not emotionally, but mechanically. Picture two people with the same income, the same intelligence, the same opportunities. One of them buys a new expensive car every few years. It feels justified. They work hard. They want comfort. They want to look successful. Payments become normal. Upgrades become routine. The other person buys a modest used car. Nothing flashy. It starts every morning. It does the job. And instead of upgrading the car, they upgrade their balance sheet. Every dollar not spent on payments gets invested. At first, the difference is invisible. Both show up to work. Both live normal lives. Both feel fine. But time is not neutral. Year after year, one path compounds forward. The other compounds backward. The person with the cheaper car isn't sacrificing quality of life, they're redirecting cash flow. And redirected cash flow, given enough time, becomes a leverage. This is where people underestimate the scale. The gap doesn't grow linearly. It explodes. What looks like just a nicer car in your 30s quietly turns into years of additional work in your 50s. One person buys convenience today, the other buys options later. Elon Musk has seen this pattern repeatedly, not once or twice, hundreds of times. Smart people, high earners, completely derailed by lifestyle decisions that felt harmless in isolation. Cars don't ruin people because they're expensive once. They ruin people because they reset expectations. They normalize spending at a level that future freedom can't support. And once that pattern is set, it doesn't take long before the car is no longer the problem. The problem is the life built around it. Here's where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because at this point, the problem is no longer the car. It's ego. From the perspective of Elon Musk, most car purchases have very little to do with transportation and almost everything to do with signaling. People don't buy cars to get from point A to point B. They buy them to send a message to coworkers, neighbors, strangers, and sometimes to themselves. I've made it. I'm successful. I'm not falling behind. But signaling is expensive, and the bill doesn't come all at once. Cars are one of the most socially accepted ways to convert insecurity into monthly payments. No one questions it. In fact, it's encouraged. A nicer car is treated like progress, even when it quietly weakens your financial position. Elon Musk sees this as a psychological trap. The people most impressed by your expensive car are usually the people who are also bad with money. People who actually understand wealth don't care. They're not looking at your car, they're looking at your balance sheet, your optionality, your freedom. What makes this trap so effective is how short-lived the reward is. The excitement fades in weeks, the attention disappears, but the payment stays. Year after year, long after the emotional payoff is gone. This is why cars are so dangerous financially. They lock you into a long-term cost structure in exchange for a very short-term feeling. And once your lifestyle rises to match your payments, your ability to take risks collapses. You can't walk away from bad jobs. You can't invest aggressively. You can't afford mistakes. Everything becomes about maintaining the image you paid for. That's the real cost of buying a car for status. You don't just lose money. You lose flexibility. And flexibility is the foundation of everything that comes next. There's a simple rule that cuts through all the excuses. If you need your salary to support the car, you can't afford the car. This is the line Elon Musk draws, and it's far less emotional than people expect. It's not about discipline or morality. It's about system design. When you buy a car using future income, you're doing something dangerous. You're committing tomorrow's flexibility to pay for yesterday's decision. The moment you sign a loan, your future options shrink. Risk becomes expensive. Failure becomes terrifying. Freedom disappears quietly, one monthly payment at a time. That's why financing a car is not neutral behavior. It's leverage in the wrong direction. Elon Musk looks at it this way. Assets should eventually pay for consumption, not the other way around. If your investments can't cover the cost of the car, then the car is stealing capital from your future systems. This is why he rejects the logic of, "I'll earn more later." Later is never guaranteed. But the payment is. The rule is brutally simple. If you have to borrow, you're not ready. If you have to stretch, you're compromising future leverage. If you feel pressure, the decision is already wrong. Cars should be purchased when they are irrelevant to your financial trajectory. When they don't change your behavior, your risk tolerance, or your ability to walk away from bad situations. Until then, a car is not transportation. It's a constraint disguised as convenience. And constraints compound just as powerfully as freedom, only in the opposite direction. So what do you do if you actually need a car? Because pretending you can live without one isn't realistic for most people. This is where Elon Musk becomes brutally practical. The mistake isn't owning a car. The mistake is optimizing for image instead of function. A car should solve one problem: only reliable transportation at the lowest total cost. Nothing more. The moment you add status excitement or self-validation into the equation, the math collapses. That's why the smarter move is almost always the same. Buy used, 2 to 3 years old, proven reliability, paid in cash. At that point, someone else has already absorbed the most violent depreciation. The car still does the exact same job, but the financial damage has been dramatically reduced. You're no longer paying for novelty, you're paying for utility. And then comes the part most people ignore. You keep it, not until it feels boring, not until your neighbor upgrades, until it no longer makes economic sense to repair. Elon Musk doesn't see this as sacrifice. He sees it as efficiency. Machines are meant to be used fully. Discarding a functional system early just to replace it with a shinier version is waste financially and psychologically. This approach does something subtle but powerful. It breaks the upgrade loop. It disconnects your identity from your possessions. It keeps cash flow free for things that actually compound. The goal isn't to punish yourself. The goal is to make sure transportation never becomes the thing that slows your entire financial system down. When a car fades into the background of your life, quiet, unremarkable, reliable, that's when it's doing its job. Anything louder than that is costing you more than you think. Look closely at the pattern, and you will see it repeat everywhere. High income, smart people, years of effort, and yet no real freedom. From the perspective of Elon Musk, this isn't bad luck. It's predictable behavior. People don't fail financially because they lack intelligence. They fail because they lock themselves into long-term obligations that slowly suffocate optionality. The car becomes the first domino. Once the payment is normal, upgrading feels justified. Once upgrading is normal, spending rises to match it. And once spending rises, risk tolerance collapses. You can't leave a job you hate. You can't take a lower salary for a higher upside. You can't invest aggressively because every spare dollar already has a destination. Elon Musk has seen this with engineers, executives, founders, people who should have been wealthy by any reasonable standard. Instead, decades later, they're still dependent on a paycheck, not because they didn't earn enough, but because their lifestyle quietly consumed their leverage. The most dangerous part is how invisible this failure is while it's happening. There's no alarm, no crisis, just a slow narrowing of choices. By the time people realize what went wrong, the car is old, the payments are history, and the opportunity to let capital compound for decades is gone. The damage isn't dramatic, it's permanent. This is why the car decision matters so much. Not because of what you drive today, but because of what it forces you to give up tomorrow. And most people never connect those dots until it's far too late. In the end, this isn't really about cars. It's about freedom. From the perspective of Elon Musk, every major financial decision should be judged by a single question. Does this increase my future options, or does it lock them away? A car bought on salary doesn't just take money. It takes time. It takes risk tolerance. It takes your ability to walk away. People think they're choosing comfort or convenience. What they're actually choosing is how long they'll have to keep working, how long they'll have to tolerate bad situations, how dependent they'll remain on systems they don't control. Driving a modest car isn't about being cheap. It's about being deliberate. The irony is that the reward doesn't come quickly. No one applauds you for driving something unremarkable. There's no short-term dopamine hit. But over years, quietly and visibly, the difference becomes enormous. One path leads to a nicer driveway and a longer career. The other leads to optionality leverage and the ability to choose how you live. Elon Musk would never tell you what to drive. He would tell you to understand the trade-off. Because when you buy a car too early, too expensively, or for the wrong reasons, you're not really buying transportation. You're prepaying decades of your future. And by the time most people realize that the cost is already locked in. So the choice is simple, whether you acknowledge it or not. You can drive status and rent your freedom. Or you can drive function and own your time. The car will be forgotten. The consequences won't.